Hey kids, thanks for coming to visit me at the fire station. Sorry we can't come to you right now. My name's David. I'm the fire captain here at Fire Station 2, and this is our engine 302 that we have. We serve the Milwaukee community, so if you live in Milwaukee, Oregon, you might see us around town. I know today and maybe several days in the future, it's going to seem a little different to you, not being able to go to school or go have as many play dates. Hopefully you get to have mom and dad around, or grandma and grandpa a little more right now to be able to see. So some changes may be good and some changes maybe are hard. But today I'd like to read a book for you. I brought this book. It's one of my kids' favorite. They're all older and bigger right now, so I'm glad I get to read it again. This is called The Great Cheese Squeeze. Can you see that okay? So grab a comfy spot on the floor on the couch. So standing tall and proud on the prairie was the lighthouse, home of Mr. Gruntley Fromage and the revered Ignatius P. Bumblesmog. These two friends took pride in a job well done, for no ship had ever crashed there. See, they lived in this lighthouse right there. When they weren't busy with lighthouse duties, Gruntley and Iggy liked to keep busy. Gruntley would tinker away in his workshop and make sculptures of his favorite subject, toes, like toes on a foot. He was so fond of toes that he wished to share his love of the bumpy, pudgy digits through his art. So he carved stubby masterpieces out of the cheese, knowing there was no finer material than cheese for crafting such irresistible wigglies. See, there's some of his that he crafted. See the toes? Likewise, Iggy, this is Iggy, a country preacher, enjoyed creating wind chimes from buggy bits, dragonfly wings, beetle feet, grasshopper legs, and such, all collected from his dinners, leftovers. Ugh. Filled his hobby room. He was a frugal frog who saw a new wind chime in everything creepy and crawly. Together, Gruntley and Iggy would sell their crafts in the lighthouse gift shop, for many tourists came to see the only lighthouse on the prairie. One day, the two friends were enjoying a meal and some fellowship. Gruntley was horking down, that means eating fast, his favorite food, cheese-filled hot dogs, and reading a magazine. Iggy was preparing some dragonfly tea, thorax nibblers. "What you reading, Gruntley?" he asked. "Oh, I'm just looking over this issue of Cheese Digest for ideas. The Prairie Cheese Carvers contest is coming up." Just then Gruntley noticed a hint of a strange smell wafting through the kitchen. Gruntley wrinkled his nose, wondering where the stinkiness was coming from. "Are you going to enter one of your cheddar toes in the contest?" asked Iggy. Gruntley was distracted from his sniffing by Iggy's question. "Oh, well, I want to try something unique. Everybody carves with mozzarella or gorgonzola, but I'd like to really wow them this year." "Oh," mumbled Iggy, wondering what a gorgonzola was anyways. "Well, if you need a hand, let me know," Iggy said aloud. No, I've got it," dismissed Gruntley. Gruntley returned to his reading and turned a page, looking for cheesy ideas. But without knowing it, he knocked a cheese dog. I don't know where it's at. Somewhere on the floor. He knocked the cheese dog onto Iggy's chair. When Iggy was ready to enjoy his meal, he sat down right on the cheese dog, which made a horrifying splatch. Look at him jump. See the cheese dog? Sound. Immediately, Iggy vaulted out of his chair, hitting his head on the ceiling. Left smushed on his chair was a very flat hot dog, which obviously had been no match for his bottom. I bet that was a surprise. An upset Iggy left the kitchen. Look, he looks a little sad now. He was still sore from sitting on a hot cheese souffle the night before. And now this? He hated sitting on food. He always had. Gruntley grabbed a spatula to scrape the hot dogs off Iggy's chair. Then he stopped. Where was the cheese? He instantly caught sight of a big blob of goo on the fridge. The cheese, when Iggy sat on the cheese dog, the cheese must have squirted out. Pulling it off the fridge, Gruntley noticed the cheese felt like clay. As he mushed it around on a plate, he shouted, "Eureka!" See, he's mushing it. That was inside the hot dog. I found the perfect cheese. Gruntley rushed upstairs with excitement in his heart and a load of cheese dogs in his arms. All that night he fastened and hammered, glued and screwed, till his weary eyes drooped into slumber. Iggy worked on a wind chime down in his room. As he glued a bee wing to a centipede, his nostrils began to twitch. What is that unspeakable stench? Why, I believe it's coming from my socks. You know how bad your socks must smell if you can tell your own socks smell bad? They must be horrible. Look where he's putting them. Because he walks like this with them on through the swamps. Iggy loved to wear woolen socks to keep his flippery feet warm as he tromped through bogs, looking for buggy bits. But he often forgot to wear shoes, and he hadn't changed his socks for weeks. So Iggy's stockings had turned sour, stinking beyond the ability of even a frog to endure. And that is really something, since frogs are rather poor sniffers. Even his wind chimes were shriveling under the blistering reek of those rotting socks. Fortunately, Iggy had the most clever plan. He quickly doffed his socks, taking them off, put them and the rest of his overripe laundry into a container, and crammed the whole mess into the freezer. Surely frozen clothes wouldn't smell as bad. Maybe not. Boy, said Iggy, we're going to have to buy another freezer. This one's pretty stuffed. He then toddled off to bed. See all those containers? Those are all his nasty clothes and socks. The next morning, Iggy was eager for another bug hunt. But when he opened his sock drawer, he found that it was empty. How could he venture forth? The dew was allowed to run. How could he venture forth if the dew was allowed to run freely over his webby digits? Frantic, he felt around the back of the drawer with his tongue, of course. All he found was a dust bunny and an old cobweb, neither of which were socks, nor did they taste very good. After washing his tongue under the faucet, Iggy went to ask Gruntley if he could borrow a pair of socks. Sound asleep in bed in his workshop, Gruntley was resting next to the very peculiar machine. What in the world is that? Thought Iggy. Then his eye caught a pile of sad-looking squished cheese dogs. See the little squished cheese dog? Remember when they sat on the hot dog and it got flattened and what came out? What evil has been done to these Franks? Cried Iggy. Soon the sound of Iggy furiously trying to inflate the hot dogs with a bicycle pump woke Gruntley. Stop, stop, cried Gruntley. I flattened those fritters on purpose. Iggy blinked at Gruntley, amazed. This is my new cheese extraction contraption. It squeezes the cheese right out of the cheese dogs. That way I can use it for sculpting. I call it the decheesinator, offered Gruntley. "Oh," said Iggy, scratching his head. "Now I understand." Though he really didn't understand at all. "I need to get some more sleep," yawned Gruntley as he lay back down. Soon he was dreaming of running a whole case of cheddar dogs through the decheesinator. Iggy was left to ponder, his socks stumper. When just then the morning clouds parted to reveal a shaft of sunlight, bright and warm. As the light spilled through the window, it nestled upon Gruntley's machine. Do you think he's coming up with an idea for his socks? It might be bad. Okay, suddenly Iggy had a thought. If Gruntley's machine can take the cheese out of cheese dogs, maybe it can take the stink out of his socks. Ooh. He hopped out of the room in a mad rush for the kitchen. He quickly defrosted all of his socks in the microwave. Phew, that must have smelled. Did that ever stink? Then, after frumping them back up to Gruntley's room, he slopped the drippy, droppy socks into Gruntley's machine. He threw the switch and stood back. Soon, the clack and the slurp of the world's only decheesinator echoed across the prairie. The socks came out smelling only half bad. So Iggy ran them through a few more times until they only faintly stunk. I guess that's better. Then he neatly folded his freshly squeezed socks and carried them off. He was looking forward to his bug hunting trek with less stinky stockings on his feet. That afternoon, Gruntley finally awoke, dizzy with excitement. Hauling out the cheese dogs, he dumped them into his machine. After turning it on, he left for a late breakfast. He returned to find a very nice heap of freshly squeezed cheese dog cheese, but suddenly his whiskers started to wilt, for the cheese smelled horribly foul. Gruntley realized something. There's only one smell that makes my throat burn and my tummy turn like this. That's when Gruntley noticed something in the bin that did not belong there. One of Iggy's socks. Look at that, there's all this green smell coming up. Ooh. I think his cheese is ruined. "Ignatius P. Bumblesmog!" screamed Gruntley as he ran from his workshop. He burst into the kitchen. There was Iggy, scrubbing the webbing between his toes with a toothbrush. Hopefully it wasn't his toothbrush. "Did you force your fetid socks through my decheesinator?" cried Gruntley. Maybe. I just kind of figured it was the thing to do. And it really took the stink out of them, too." He nodded. "Well, most of it. Well, some of it anyways." Gruntley was shaking with fury. "Do you realize what you've done? Now all my cheese smells like stinky feet." I don't think he was very happy with him. Iggy cowered behind his chair as Gruntley continued. "How will it look when I put my cheese toes in the competition and they smell like feet?" Gruntley stopped. "Wait a minute," he exclaimed. "I have an idea. Think about it. Cheese toes that actually smell like real feet." Amazed, Iggy looked up at the smiling, happy Gruntley. "Why, I bet that all the other carvings in the contest will smell just like plain old cheese. That's certainly not very interesting," said Gruntley. He's got an idea. "No, I don't suppose it is," smiled a quite relieved Iggy. So Gruntley went ahead and sculpted those stinky cheese toes. He put them in the contest, and they won the most original ribbon at the Prairie Cheese Carvers competition. After the contest, Gruntley turned to Iggy and said, "And to think of, if it hadn't been for you and your stinky socks, I never would have won." Iggy smiled, "And if it hadn't been for your decheesinator, we wouldn't have had to buy a new freezer." Look at that. First place, most original. In the end, Gruntley's stinky cheese toe carvings ended up touring several art galleries, with good ventilation, of course. Folks came from all around to catch a whiff of them. Even in the lighthouse gift shop, Gruntley's stinky cheese toe sculptures sold briskly, along with plenty of Iggy's furter jerky made from the deterginator franks. Gruntley and Iggy were happy to learn that two friends working together really are better than one. And from that day on, Gruntley let Iggy run his socks, but not his underwear, through the deterginator anytime he wanted. The end. They have quite a unique friendship, don't they? Well, thanks for listening to me read a book to you guys. I hope you have a great day, and good luck during this time. And we are here for you guys. All right? Bye.